that concludes my slide. So in front of you, you will see, you have a binder, and there, every tab is a new vendor. So we had 8 vendors submit a proposal and their qualification statements. They're pretty much in the same order, except in some little areas. So the first section is gonna be the vendor response. That is, it's downloaded from our bidding portal. And those are the questions, I'll guide you through that. The second part is their W-9. Third part is the conflict of interest form that they have to fill out. The fourth part is their 1295 form that's required by law. The fifth part is their certificate of insurance, and this is where it could vary. If a vendor responded with any type of correspondence, that would be in the next section. And then their state bar, proof of good standing, then any references that they might have listed, and then their best and final offer. As I noted on the email that I sent y'all, after having some comments on their original submissions, we realized that they needed a little bit of clarification. At that point, we advised them that we would not have in-house counsel and requested their best and final offer, because some of them were quoting based on the fact that if we were going to have an in-house counsel. That was never posted or anything. I don't know if they watched the last board meeting or something, or they somehow heard along the lines, because we never published anything about in-house counsel, but that was a question by one of the firms. And so we decided to send out the clarification statements to everybody to clarify that we were going to keep our special ed counsel, and that we would not have an in-house counsel. And so that's when we got our best and final offers from them. So any questions so far before we begin looking at the firms? So the first firm, and they're in order by submission. So the first was Atlas and Hall. If you turn to the first document, that's their, the supplier response. This is printed directly from our Ion Wave portal. The first, I would say, the majority of the beginning is requirements. So these are where they attest to comply with any law that's applicable. Where it begins for you to begin looking at it, if you look on page 13 out of the 18, those are our bid line items, and this is how we initially put it out. So if you begin, you'll see bid lines, and it begins with number 1, fixed price. And this was the initial. I sent y'all an updated. Some people actually lowered their price from their original submission. So this is on the first section. This is Atlas and Hall's response, and they went by number 1, the fixed price. Number 2 is their statement of qualifications, because we did do an RFP with the qualifications.
When you're talking about that real quick, what page are you on?
Yeah.
I am on page 13, and you can see them at the bottom left, 13 of 18. So these are individual responses. Do you have the one here, the response attachments? If you would, one of the things that you can look through this and leaf through it, I'm not sure if you've had time to do that, but we also have a spreadsheet with all of them side by side. So Crystal's handing those out right now. And those, that might be easier for you to compare side by side each firm, because we get a packet for each one, and so we pull it to an Excel.
Yeah.
So we eliminated all the required, everything's already in the packet, but that way you don't have to, you can only focus on what's there. So if you look at the first page, the question that was asked is, you can find it at the bottom of the second page. It's this big because some of them were pretty lengthy. If you look at the bottom of the second page, this was their competence and qualifications, but you can see the firms side by side on how they responded regarding their competence and qualifications. Some of them go on to the second page, so they're very lengthy. Did y'all want to take some time to read those, or have y'all had a chance to read those?
A microscope?
Marco's
Yeah,
lucky he got some readers, thanks for the readers.
What about if there were attachments?
Everything's in the packet. Everything's in this packet right here.
I understand, but on this,
So this is a way to view all of the firms side by side. If you want to look at them individually, you'll look at the binder. So 2 options to look at it.
so we should not rely on this solely, because there's some, if I may, there's some indications here that says, please see attached packet, and there, within this spreadsheet, we didn't copy and paste what was in the attach.
So the attachment.
It says to refer to it.
Right.
So we go to our packet, we can see it.
Yes, definitely.
And my
yes.
point being is we cannot rely on this spreadsheet to have all the answers to the questions that were posed.
Correct. You'd be able to see anything that's not, an attachment would be over here, anything that they attached in addition to what was requested. So that would be over here. I'm sorry? This is an overview, yes. This is just an easier on the eye in a sense to be able to see everybody's side by side. You can see their pricing side by side. So perhaps their qualification statements are not going to be as clear here. You might forget, if you're looking at Atlas and Hall, you have to switch back to another firm versus side by side. It's pulled from the same place. We didn't type it in. It's our bidding portal compiles this for us.
You know, I think if you're going to go through this effort, and it's a great effort, it's a great document, and it's a great summary, if there are references to the attachment, then I think we ought to draw those so that you are truly seeing.
And they are, Mr. Saliva, they're in your packets. Yeah.
Not on here.
This is, remember, this is a summary of it. Yeah, so it's in
The point I'm making, and I don't want to belabor this, and it's not a summary if you did not take it from the excerpts, that it says to refer to the excerpts. Then it becomes a true summary of everybody's points, some of which was in the document per se, and some of them were in the attachment. I'm not being critical, I just want to be clear that this is a overview, as you said, but it's not a summary because it doesn't contain all the true answers, of which some of them were in an attachment. And it's been my experience that you would take those from the attachment and put them here to make it a true summary, where at a glance you have all the pertinent information. That's just my observation. Take that and 50 cents, get a cup of coffee somewhere, so that's it.
So how do you want to go through it?
So if I would suggest is, I guess it's our duty to look through this. This is a cheat sheet if we want to use it, but know that this is not going to have what this entails.
Exactly.
Correct. So each line item is directly on here?
Right.
And the attachment is
And
not
if
on?
not, it's on.
It's over here.
And in the summary, is the wording taken from?
It's, so
here?
we don't touch it. The system generates this, and the system generates this.
Perfect.
So this is side by side, and this is a, yes.
Thank you for that. Thank
Yes.
you for this work.
It's good work, it's just suggestion in the future, it really ought to have that, in my opinion.
So, I have a question.
Yes, sir.
The gray section, line 2, or line 1, according to the chart, there's a firm that's put nothing, there's a firm that's put 0. That's what they want to charge us?
That was the original, and that's why we sent out clarifications, because some people left that blank, it was required. And then if you notice the last, 5 firms, they didn't, either they responded something that just didn't seem accurate, so we sent out the first clarification. And at that point, that's when some of them were making comments, well, if you're gonna have in-house counsel, if you're gonna, and I'm not, like I mentioned earlier, I'm not sure where they got that information from.
They
So
watch
that's
the
when we
board meeting.
clarified to them that, no, we have special ed, we have a special ed attorney, and we will not have in-house counsel. So that's on the other attachment that I shared with you, and I'll put that one.
Yeah, just to be clear, the board meetings are recorded.
Yes, sir.
The workshops are recorded, I should say. And then at a later date, they are posted on YouTube. So if they searched for that, then they could have seen what was being discussed as they were preparing. So to your point, that's correct, they could have seen it on that. Now, you did send out the subsequent, and they were attached to another hyperlink you sent us.
Correct.
And it's this document right here, and it
Yes.
has a figure. So are we to take that figure now and plug it in
And I
onto
have
this
it- yes,
sheet
and
here?
I have it ready for you. It's on the one that I shared on the OneDrive. And I'll share that with you right now.
Yeah, here's one over here, it had 600.
So this is these are the revised pricing. We went ahead and took the liberty of plugging them in here. And this is after we sent out the clarifications. And it's on your OneDrive if you,
You don't have that hard copy, do you?
Did
Because
we
I
print
couldn't open it, I'm not sure.
We have a preliminary matrix that we started, that you can see, so you can see that also.
Because I'm not sure, but I couldn't open it. I think there were several other board members that couldn't open it
You weren't able to
either.
open it?
I could open the original one you had, but the two subsequents, I could not open.
Okay.
Until today, I came over here and got technical support, and they got me through it, and so what I did is I printed them out.
Okay.
Okay, so I have a question.
I'm gonna transfer it over here to keep it
Okay,
together.
if I may. I have a pricing, I have a question on the pricing. When a firm looks and gives a price, what is, does everybody's, work, in other words, what we're getting for 250 is the same thing we're getting for 150 and 750?
They were.
The scope is the same for
It's the exact same scope. The only firm that had a little bit of a caveat to their pricing was Atlas and Hall. Everybody else was set pricing. Atlas and Hall, the price they quoted was $250,000 as a flat fee, but they did, in their letter, they did indicate that it was gonna be $175 an hour for litigation. Nobody else indicated anything like that. They were the only ones that varied. So that 250 may not be 100% actual. So this is the evaluation matrix that was posted when we put this RFPQ out. And we've taken the liberty of doing a preliminary fill-in for you. There's some areas highlighted where I'd like the board to provide me your input on that. The pricing is set. That's the revised pricing. It's on, you'll find it on that first orange line. And not the name, not what their name is, but it's like the fourth line down.
Could you please, after you do this, could you take us back to the question or the placing in the document to kind of help us as to what it states when it comes to their providing us their pricing?
Yes, and you
Because
can,
in your document, it says fixed price per year.
yes, and that's all we ask. So if you look at bid line item number 1, which is page 13 of any of their responses, it's list your firm's fixed price per year.
Right on the bid line.
Yeah,
It's on the
It's
bottom,
Yeah.
page 13 out of 18 on that, if you're
second
looking
to
at,
the bottom.
if you're looking at this document, well, this one doesn't have the original, but.
well, I guess as we go through and have a conversation, like, a concern would be, for me, both personal and experience on this board, came on, we had 10 lawsuits. And we've had several since, and the cost for each one of those is significant at times. Is I would think that there would be some understanding that if we were to get, say, one lawsuit, much less multiple lawsuits, and taking their hourly rate fee, and there's one here, I'm not gonna mention the name, with, at the rate that they put on there, it'd be very difficult for them to be able to function in the day-to-day of this operation and still handle the litigation. So I don't know if there was a different way to express that. Because I think the way I interpreted it when I read it is it's a caveat. In other words, it's this rate is my fixed rate, but if this were to occur, and I think that would have to be true of any legal firm, is if we get into a lawsuit, things change, it's a different situation.
The responses, like I mentioned, only Atlas and Hall actually stipulated that. Everybody else provided their flat fee.
Well, because there's two in here, and you look at their rate, well, three actually. There's, I think, given our experience, it would be hard pressed that they'd be able to do that at that rate and handle a lawsuit. And still, I mean, in the end of the day, they have to make a profit. I mean, they have to. Anyway, it's just a thought and observation. I don't know how we could have clarified that. I think the reason you got that response is knowing the experience we've had in this district, the amount of lawsuits that have had to be defended.
Mr. President, do we
Yes.
have an opportunity to close session real quick?
Are we allowed to do that?
Not when it comes to discussing this. The only thing we can go into a closed session is to discuss with legal counsel, a particular matter of a legal matter. HR, if it's dealing with an employee, we can go into closed session for purchase of property, which we're not discussing tonight, or we can go for acquisition of property, which we're not acquiring property. So under Texas Government Code 551.071, 551.072, 551.073, and 551.076, if I remember correct, those are the only 4 reasons in which the Board of Trustees can go into closed session.
Now, in consideration of what it is we're discussing of a potential employee, would we be covered under 551.072, 551.073, 551.704, or 551.076 to ask the questions that we need to get a little clarification on?
It's not an employee of the district, it's a contract individual. We're contracting. So we're not discussing unless,
Let me just clarify something, and then we might not even have to do that.
now, the board has a right, as the chair, if you don't agree with me, you can say you don't agree and state your position, and you can call for a vote to override what I just said.
Right.
And then we can move on, but that's my impression and my opinion at this time.
Well,
Since I don't
it-
have legal counsel here to,
And as I'm going back and forth, and I don't know what the question is, but some of the rankings seem a little bit low to me, but however, at the end of the day, we're going to choose as a board who we want to interview anyway.
well, that's a very good question. Last time you asked me, and it's troubled me since you asked that question last time and I gave you an answer. If we were to function the way we've always had in whole deciding who we're going to contract with when it comes to professional legal services.
Right.
Which is an exception under the procurement statute, I'd say, yeah, that's true. But if we're being driven by a point system and a scale that's being given to us, and it's different than what we normally would have done, which would have been a ranking of 1 through, in this case, 1 through 8, and we can say we're going to do the top 3, or who has the lowest number, because if you rank them 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1 being your first choice, then that would determine who the 3 is as a whole.
Well, I think the only difference is, and again, I'm probably splitting hairs, but I didn't score. So I'm going to use Atlas Hall because he's our current attorney, and he's rated low here, and it's, he got a 1 for construction architect instead of a 5. He's been with us for 20 years, so to me, it's not really a matter. I give him the 5 years. I give him the 5 points. I mean, so again, it's just my interpretation. I'm using that as the example. I'm not saying everybody else agrees, but that's just where I'm coming from. So I personally think this is a guide for me,
Okay.
but ultimately, I need to come up with my own scoring. Because we're the ones that ultimately can interview and actually vote. So, and take the administration out, because the attorney works for us, not them. So I think we missed a step somewhere.
Yeah, Mr. President, if I may, and that's one of the reasons why I wanted to meet. I just want to make it very clear publicly and to administration that this is just a guide for us. No longer do I think that the board, now that we've seen this, can the board say, well, we want more weight here, more weight there, because we've already seen these numbers, which means if we were to do that, we would be in jeopardy of skewing something, and that's not what we're about, right? So this is public now. So I just want to clarify that out in the public. So I agree with Mr. Alvarado, and I think a lot of vendors don't always understand this, is that just because you're the lowest bidder doesn't mean that you're going to be the one chosen. And so I just want to make it very clear to administration that when Marco Suarez, evaluates this, it's not going to be based on the point system that you have, because Mr. Alvarado is right. You know, all of us have different opinions on what our legal representation, what's important to us. To me, it might be construction. To someone else, it might be employment. I mean, it's all important, but I might myself give it more weight. So I just want to clarify that that you're giving us, we're not changing from this. This is the exact same point system that you're going to give us when it's time to sit down and evaluate it. Because at no point would I agree with you changing anything now that we've seen this. Just my opinion.
And if I may say so, the point right here where it says max points, that's what the board decided to publish. So the vendors were aware of the max points they could get per category. So what we've done as a preliminary, and it's just to kind of start y'all off, because it's a lengthy process.
Right.
Based on other evaluations, and we have formula that we've used to get to these points, but we don't have to use that system. We just told, this is what we published on this side and these points, and then we could go from there.
Well, that's what I want to clarify. Where we can go from there, I don't want to change the amount of points or anything like that, because this has already been brought to we already know everybody's points, so we can't change anything anymore.
Right.
Okay.
And to let you know where these points came from, like 1.67.
No, I'm not down, I just want to clarify that
Alright.
we're not changing it.
Yeah, correct.
These are the points we got, this is our cheat sheet now, what Ms. Peña, Mr. Alvarado, Mr. Vela decides to do with these points, that's up to them.
Yeah.
Okay.
And just to, Mr. Saliba, like, if, on sheet 2 up here where I'm gonna share, we just basically wrote down, like, the four main areas of the law that y'all said were the most important. We just said the attorneys that they listed, do they have that experience? And that's how we came up with, and it's a formula, it wasn't, we didn't make it up, it was a formula that we used. So for this firm, one attorney is knowledgeable in 2 areas, another one is in 2 areas, and another one is in 2 areas. So you kind of read it sideways. So it's staff 1, staff 2, and staff 3. And then up here are the 4 types of law that the board said were the most important. And that's where these numbers came and were transferred over here. But it doesn't have to stick. This is just a starting point.
Any other questions or comments? Did that help in any way?
But did you clarify your point too, Sam, to me?
Pretty much what was said is what we had previously discussed. The concern that maybe is the perception is that this is being used as a sole determinant of who we're going to interview.
Right.
And ultimately would be selecting.
Right.
And the reality is that it's a preliminary based on a first impression.
Absolutely.
In which we need to kind of go over ourselves individually and kind of see where this falls in. That was the way I had seen it. I wasn't sure how anybody else saw it.
I agree, Sam.
Okay, all right, and that,
And my point.
I just say it differently because I take the finer part to it, because I don't, at this point, I don't think there's any real absolute if it's truly a preliminary. To go
Right.
further than it's a preliminary and it's up to each individual is probably saying more than what it really means at this point. Am I correct? Am I
Yes, sir.
correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And I just want to clarify, I mean, I was using that one example, whether I'm not saying I agree with it, it's just an example. But I understand what you're saying, we needed a starting point, because there was a lot. So, I appreciate the work, because I'm not saying, I might agree with it, I need a little bit more time just to review some things on it, but I think it gave us a good foundation to go from,
It's a good starting point.
absolutely.
So if we can start probably with the easier parts. So if we look at number 5.
Well, before we go on, I just want to make get one thing clear from the board. There was a request by a board member of going into closed session. Does that request still want to
No.
go into closed?
No,
Okay.
sir.
And just to be clear, we're good.
Thank you.
Right.
Thank you. So I'll come back to the top portion, but probably the easier ones that I would think that the board would be in agreement with was past relationship with the district. We had posted if they did have a past experience with us, would be 1 point, and no experience or a negative experience would be 0. So from those, and we're looking at line 5 all the way across. The only ones that have had experience with us.
Are we still looking at this one?
Yes, I'm on number 5. I'm on this line right here, past relationship with the district, which is line 25. Let me highlight it. Right there.
Well, we're not able to
It's
see the
line 5
lines on
yours,
here.
But on ours, we don't have, so we have to
It
come.
Oh, God, I'm sorry.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
that's
So
okay.
it's past relationship with the district.
Got it.
It says LI pound 5.
Yeah, got it.
And so it was either a 1 or a 0. From the people who have had past experience with the district, Baltasar did not, Powell did not, Schulman did not, and West did not. Everybody else got their 1 point. Is the board comfortable with that?
Yes, ma'am?
Okay. The next one was Hub, historically underutilized businesses. If they were certified Hub, they provided a certificate. From those, one of them actually listed it, Baltasar listed that they were Hub, but when we verified on the CMBL list, they were not certified, so we didn't give them the points. And then the only one that was actually yes and a verified was West, so they got the 1 point, everybody else was a 0. Is everybody comfortable with that? And then the next part, number 7, was 0 points, so there's nothing to review, which is the total long-term cost of the district. And then the vendor or the vendor's ultimate parent company or majority owner has its principal place in the business in this state or employs 500 employees. Everybody was from Texas, so everybody got the point. And then those are the easy ones. The next ones are a little bit more challenging for us to review. Number 9 being one of that we highlighted for the board to decide. So any other relevant factors specifically listed in the request for bids or proposals, they were gonna get 1 point if there was anything else that y'all found relevant. Maybe perhaps special knowledge and skills, which would have been line item number 2. If you wanna look at this summary, you can look at line item number 2 to see if you feel that they would deserve that extra point. If you want to look at the individual ones, that would come from their statement of qualifications. So it just depends on if you feel that they have anything other than what we asked for, the 4 areas of law, that you may feel they have special skills, anything other relevant special skills.
Under construction and architectural law, how did you make that determination? Because the firm we have now helped us in settling the Hill Loss claim,
So what
and
we.
it was all structural and architectural issues.
Okay, so if you take a look at, we'll look at Atlas and Hall's response, we'll do specifically theirs for now. If you look at page 15 of 18, and the page numbers are on the bottom left. Atlas and Hall listed 3 attorneys. Attorney number 1 was Stephen Crane, and he checked off where his areas were of specialty.
He did not check that.
He only checked off school and public law, real estate law, personnel law, facility use and naming rights, and then other. And then in the other, it's number 5, he put local government. That was his other. Then if you look at the next attorney, attorney number 2 is Rex Leach, and he checked off school and public, employment and labor, personnel, and other, and his other was litigation. And then attorney number 3 was Deborah Getz, and they checked off school and public, construction and architecture law, real estate, finance, and other. So based on the 4 areas that the board requested that we were gonna weigh the points, that's where we came to this sheet right here. That's why we created this sheet, where it's got the 4 areas, and here's the law firm, so we just put staff number 1, which was Mr. Crane. He had 2 of the 4. Staff number 2 was Mr. Leach. He had 3 of the 4. And then staff number 3, which was Deborah Getz, had 2 of the 4 areas. And that's where the point distribution came from.
So that's how we need to go through each one of us. And you're going to provide us that sheet when it has we're able to get the input?
This particular sheet, we don't have that one. We can print it out. She can print it out real quick. Yeah, so basically, if they had 3 out of 3, we gave them the 3. If they were 3 out of 3 in school and public law, we did 10 points. And then the rest of it, it was basically, and there's a formula, I'm not sure if you can see it, 1 out of 3 times, this was 5 points. This was worth 5 points too, so 1 out of 3 had 5 points, and then 2 out of 3, so they got the 3.3. And that's where the numbers came from. We can use any numbering system, we just have to stick to the points. So we had said that school and public law was gonna be 10, the rest of the categories were gonna be 5. So that was just, like I said, a preliminary. I don't know if you agree with doing it that way or how you wanna do it. And it's got all the firms listed going down.
As you mentioned, it's a starting point.
Correct.
Just to clarify, in any of the application process, does it specify to them that they have to be at our meetings in person?
That they have to what?
To be at our meetings in person?
Yes,
Okay,
as needed, as requested by the district.
okay, in person,
Yes,
not via Zoom or anything?
correct. We did, yeah, the scope did say in person,
Okay.
correct. And if you want to see it in this document, you would go to the fourth page at the very bottom where it says number 3. It begins with attorney number 1, and you'll see all 8 firms with who they listed, the year's experience, and then the area that they were able to find it. So not the back of the first page, the back of the second page, so the fourth.
On the bottom?
Sam, who does a reference check? The superintendent or,
What do you mean?
like, who can call another school district and ask questions?
Normally, it would be the purchasing person. In this case, if it was an employee, it would be HR. So in this case, it would be her.
She check references.
She could check references.
Can he check references with superintendents when they're putting superintendents? on?
Normally, he does not get involved in the procurement process, no. Just to
Oh,
be
'cause it's
clear,
procurement.
it's
Okay.
procurement.
Got it.
Under the procurement process,
Yeah.
if there was references or questions regarding references being included in the sheet, in the process of evaluating a vendor or contractor in this case, that would be your work as the director of purchasing, since it's under purchasing.
Correct.
The
And
superintendent would not get involved.
In checking
this
the
partic-
references?
That's correct.
Correct.
It's all, it would all be
Oh,
handled
yes,
within your
absolutely.
department. And either you, if you would, only you or your designee that you would designate, say, hey, call, and verify this information. That's how it's done.
correct. And
Thank you.
we do have, we've taken the lead already and have been calling. Some of the firms were able to contact everybody, some of them only 2 out of 3 references. So we had a set of questions that we asked pertaining to day-to-day activities. And so based on that, we've gotten some back, and we'll provide that to you, and if you want us to call back and ask more questions. We've been calling since Wednesday. Some firms, some people are not responding to us, email, phone calls, but we've gotten some.
Yes, but it's still early in your preparing, because what you needed to do, and you did to get it ready for last Tuesday, is to get the information that was submitted by those that were responding to the RFQP or RFPQ. That's what got us to this point. And then you started doing your summary, or I should say preliminary.
Start looking at it right
Yes, preliminary.
Yes, and so you
Pretty
still
solid
have more
school
work to do in
Yes.
that regard. Okay. And which I think they are too. They're trying to balance it out.
So if I may just explain this part, so on the construction, if you look up on the screen or the paper in front of you, the school law and public law, they all got the 10 points. That was the maximum they could get. So they all had, all their staff that they listed received the 10 points based on the question. That was the max they could get, and they all received it. The 5 points, it was where it varies because not everybody had their additional experience.
You might have covered this before I walked in, so I want to apologize. But on the price, on this sheet where it has the scoring, there's a 26. That was not factored into any of the rankings, right?
No, the price, the points for the price have not been taken into account. These prices are going to go up. This ranking, it's adding as we move, as we add numbers, it's automatically just
Okay.
adding for us. So we haven't even taken price into account.
And then, yeah, because there's one like 750,000, right?
Yeah. So typically, the formula that we use is we take the lowest priced one, and they get the max points, and then everything else is on a weighted scale.
Okay. And then I was trying to find, on the one that's the lowest, is he currently in any other district?
And that's
That's the 125, it's number.
Schulman. So
40.
Schulman would be.
Yeah, Schulman. I couldn't find, well, you know what, I have the big thing right here, I'm sorry, I have to look at it. Because that would, I'm wondering why that price is so low. If he's doing other schools and he's got it down, okay, but he doesn't have any schools, but he's in San Antonio, so does he have a local person? Is he gonna send us expenses, you know, or bill
Yeah.
for expenses, you know, all those things? That 125 might be a little misleading.
So the third tab from the back is Schulman's response. If you want to go to that one, that's their individual response. And you'd have to, again, go to page 13 to see their line items,
Gotcha.
and you could start seeing. And this is where they had put no price. They were one of the ones we had to get clarification, is they literally wrote no response, but we
Oh, here
needed
it
a
is.
price.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Yes, it's tiny. It's tiny writing, but it's a lot of information on one sheet. She's handing out this sheet for you right now.
Natalie brought us magnifying.
have a magnifying glass.
Oh, thank you, thank you. No, this is awesome. Thank you, thank you.
They used to be in this right here.
Microscope for this.
Magnifying, yeah, they were here. Natalie, what happened to our magnifying glass? They used to be here. There we go. Thank you.
Well, where's my glass?
Oh, hey, I got them to work.
I still can't.
That's what was, I'll share with my brother.
Gracias. Thank you.
There was a Mustang award. and I said, "Hey, here, I'll take it. I'm gonna take it, I'm gonna put it on my desk." Nobody else has one.
Ma'am, you can't put extra stuff in the dais.
It's on the dais. You've got napkins on the dais, so. We're done. Ooh.
And the board could decide at any point, because as long as one attorney can cover that area, that can suffice to give them the points. Because if you notice Salazar, they only have one staff member. So they're hitting the points on everything because they're experienced in everything. So this is where the board can consider, well, wait a minute, well, as long as one of them gets it, they should get the full amount of points. We can do that. Because somebody will represent us regardless. So those are things to consider.
I appreciate that, Ms. Gonzalez. You're absolutely right. I think you're right on point. Because, again, I'm troubled because, you know, we've had a lot of litigation and we've prevailed. And we had, especially in that huge settlement on the hail loss claim, you know, 17.5 million doesn't happen because you had somebody que más o menos sabía, you know, he had to clearly know. And so I'm a little concerned that that scoring is so low. And I know, you know, worked with that individual on other things from a personal standpoint when I was employed. And so I'm a little taken aback on that.
But, pardon me, but those numbers don't reflect,
Yes,
they don't, do they?
yes, they come back over here. They're rounded on the other page and they're not rounded here. So you'll see the 1.67, 1.67, 1.33, those are those numbers. They're linked directly from there.
It's this one.
So if you notice on Atlas and Hall, they have the 1.7, 1.7, and 3.3, but it's rounded. Like if I remove the decimal, and if I added more decimal places,
Get rid of it and give me.
you'll see the 1.67. And these are being linked directly over here.
I
So,
understand that, but does it matter that one attorney covers all three areas? Or does it just matter that they have an attorney that will cover that particular
well,
area?
that's what I was posing to you. That's what I was posing to you, that you can take that into consideration because at least you have one person representing and get the full
I think if you have
points.
a team of people who specialize in all the areas
Correct.
we need help in, that they should be scored appropriately.
Like that
Correct,
one-
correct.
That one firm only has one attorney, so they need.
So they're going to get it everywhere. Yeah, Baltasar has,
And just because they said they're an expert doesn't mean they truly are an expert.
Yeah.
They might
Those are
be,
very good questions for the interview process.
yeah.
Yeah.
so that's
Because I wanna
definitely
see how they
something to
answer
consider.
that.
That's definitely something to consider, that as long as somebody can do that area, then we should be okay and give them the full points.
Sam, what's the goal here? I know we're reviewing all this, but are we gonna decide, are we actually picking them today, or are we just discussing?
Today is the board's purview, what the board wishes, and it's by consensus. We can't vote, but I can get a consensus, and that tells me where we need to move. If the consensus is that we have enough information to begin to narrow down who we want to interview, then we can take that step. If we feel we need more time to review, because some of us had a difficulty accessing the information, we could do that, and we could, postpone or this meeting to a later date to give you that time. So we could take one of those options at this time. If you feel we're comfortable enough to begin a conversation about who we want to interview, we can have that conversation. But I think we need to make sure that the administration has pointed out to us everything you need to share with us. And if we're at that point, are we at that point yet, or you want to cover a few more items?
Well,
Do we need to cover a few more items?
we definitely need to cover more items, but on this section, do you want to make some kind of determination already that as long as they have one of?
I'm sorry, Ms.
That make-
Gonzalez, it's our meeting, so
Okay.
all I need from you at this point, we have to cover more items, right? That's what
Yes.
I understand. So it's really up to Trustee Alvarado, is that if you feel after we cover these items, that we need to now start having a conversation about whom we want to interview and how we determine that, then that's when we can do it. And any board member, we can say, we're ready now, or we continue with the discussion with the administration. It's up to you. Trustee Vela, does that answer your question? Trustee Alvarado? Are you okay with
Yeah,
that?
I mean, to be quite frank with you, I obviously haven't gone through all this, so there's some things I want to review on it. I don't think I'm going to get through it right now, sitting here.
Okay.
So I want a little bit of time just to, get my thoughts together.
I hear you, okay.
Mr. Salido, you made a point, and I want to make sure that we cover that point, are there things we need to know? I think you said,
Yes.
maybe not exactly the same way, but as we go through what you're going to cover, if you feel there is something that is remarkable that we need to know about in your discovery, please share it with us at that time so that we don't overlook it or, don't hear it until maybe it's too late.
And then you're
Good
gonna
or
want-
bad?
You're gonna want.
Thank you.
a
Thank you,
couple of
Trustee Vela.
questions. They're gonna want a couple of questions from each of us, right?
Interview questions, yes. So they're set, and we have
So are
those.
they
during-
gonna know the interview question?
No,
Okay, good.
they will not know the interview questions.
Having said that, the board has to decide how we want to proceed into that next step. The norm would be you have a series of questions and you got to be consistent. That's the norm. But the board has to decide how they want to do that. The point being is, when we went through the superintendent process, the board decided we only wanted with one question by each board member. And as it turned out, it was about a good hour with 7 board members allowing for roughly 5 to 10 minutes. The question wouldn't take that long, but for the answer, and also, if a person wanted to pivot, the person being the interviewee, say, did I answer your question? And one of us would say, yes, okay, well, can I take this time to then clarify my presentation? It was roughly 8 to 10 minutes, so that was an hour, in other words. So, and Mrs. Gonzalez and I talked about that, we've been talking about the 2 question, and if the board feels 2 questions, then it's 2 questions. But bear in mind that, time-wise, how much we're talking with each question. But I do agree, and I think we all agree, to have a consistent set of questions, then you can make better comparison. I think that's a fair thing. I hope that answered your question. Again, it's a purview of the board.
And just to piggyback off that, I agree with that, because it's gonna be hard, instead of us to ask too many questions, that's why I wanna read as much as possible, to get a better feel.
Yes, sir.
We're willing to come with some type of format of an interview process before we even start that. We can pick them, but then we need to come up with a format about it.
Very good point. And it may be a separate conversation of just that, which we had that as we were doing the interview. Trustee Vela's correct, as we were going through the superintendent. Of course, we had a general consultant that was working with us, so when the board felt we need guidance by the consultant about the format and how that was going to take place, he helped us get through that point. Here, we don't have a consultant, and it's again, our purview, so we're going to have to kind of reach a consensus about that. And again, if the consensus is we should have another date of time just to do that and finalize the list, then maybe that's what we need to do. It's your call.
Our current contract with Atlas is up in end of May, right, is what I understand?
No, end of June,
Oh, okay, so we still have a little bit of time, not a whole lot, but a little.
a little bit of time.
Worst case scenario, we get past June, we could always have the latitude to extend that for 30 days, our preview as far as the board.
Ms. Gonzalez, I don't think so.
It does not have extension options.
Does not have to finish on.
No, but we have actually 2 other law firms in our contract,
Yeah,
so we could
we have
pivot.
options.
Yes, we have options.
Not saying it'll take that long, but we want to be methodical about it.
Well, I'm glad you brought up that point, because I didn't even thought about that until you asked the question that, and then suddenly the list came to mind, is that we do have some latitude in the sense that we have 3 other attorney firms we use. One is specifically for special needs, so we would probably not use that, although it's not to say we couldn't, but we have the other 2 firms. And we just extended the 1-year option, so we have time. We have time. So I would be one not to rush that we have to meet that June deadline. If we need the time, we need the time as a board.
Perfect. Floor is yours. Right.
Yes, unless anybody has any other clarifications or thoughts. Mrs. Gonzalez, you have the floor again.
So some of the areas that I'd like you to take a look at, and I believe you have the numbers on there now. So the number of the years the firm has been in practice, that was worth 10 points. So in different types of evaluations, we've done it in tiers, that's an option. And we put it in tiers just to give you example of how you can do it. Like 0 to 3 years would be 0 points, or so on and so forth. You can break it up however you want. Anything highlighted is more of an example. Because the firm, underneath is where you can see most of them are 20 plus. There is one firm, though, that is 11 to 15. So just kind of deciding ahead of the game how you're going to distribute that would be a good idea. That and experience with other industries, how you want to take a look at that. And then attorneys available to service us, if you want to consider one is enough, or whatever it is that the board wants to decide. And then the other only area would be the special knowledge and skills, anything that one's only worth 1 point, but it may catch your attention and you might think, okay, well, you know what, I think that's worth it.
Why would they get a point if they didn't even answer that question?
Which one was that?
It would be I don't want to name names, but
Well, it's
in the
public.
attorneys available to service, the second one over got a point, and he didn't even list attorneys available to service. Well, everybody else had 10.
We haven't given them any points here. They're blank, it's all highlighted. Up here? That's on the original evaluation maker, there's nothing there.
Why did we get this?
No, they didn't get it.
Nobody's gotten any
I think you're
points.
reading the wrong line.
The
They didn't
attorneys,
get points.
You see these
no,
points? You see
they
the
listed
points?
one. The one is how many people they listed.
That's how you count it. No,
Are you looking at the red?
No,
Yeah,
there's
the
no
red
10
one.
The
above
red
that
means how
one.
many they listed. I just put a number there
he didn't
for
get a
you, that they
zero.
listed, that's how many people they can service us. They didn't get a point. Anything in red is just a rationale. Anything in black is points. So, first firm listed 3 people available to service. Baltasar listed 1 person, Eichelbaum 3, O'Hanlon 3, Powell 3, Schulman 3, Walsh Gallegos 3, and West 3. So they're not points, it's just the number of actual attorneys.
May 2nd, 6:23, Danny Villa made one mistake, first time in a long time.
It is.
It's his readers, it's not his.
We're gonna get you a bottle of white out, Danny, because that's when people make
Well,
mistakes.
When it comes to numbers.
Don't listen to them, Sam. Don't listen to them.
Actually, I don't think he made one, because he asked the question. Now, if he had said, if he had made a point saying, it looks like, then that's a mistake, he owned it. The other was a question.
Hey, mine was a backhanded compliment.
Okay.
May
Take it
2nd,
away.
6:23, Ito screwed up again.
Well, that's the normal, okay?
We're just adding it to the list. Tabulating, sir.
It's bigger than this notebook.
And that's good. The more mistakes we make, that means we've learned something, so that's good. Took, what, 3,000 tries to get a light bulb, so, anyway. No, we're not, we're having conversations. That's why it's a workshop.
Ms. Peña, can you do the cliff notes for me and get them to me by Thursday?
No.
Seems like she,
I'm practicing saying no more. Yeah.
I always thought you did a great job of saying no.
Mrs. Gonzalez,
That's pretty much the areas I wanted you to look at. Well, of course, the way that you want to distribute these points, whether experience with 1 person is sufficient to get the full points. Other than that, do y'all have any questions?
It's just more of a comment. The way, again, following the statute as it applies to the board, the procurement process does not apply when it comes to hiring professional service and attorney. I think we agree on that, right? And so, and again, looking at the board policy that specifically says that, the board will decide, and how we have done so in the past still weighs, in my opinion. And so this helps us to get to the decision, if even that, maybe not even that much, to whom we're going to interview. And once the interview, it's all based on, like it is for everybody else that's hiring an attorney, is como te cae. I mean, how does it fit within what you're looking at for your organization? And that's why there's 7 of us, and we got to get to at least 4 of us that see it the same way. That's the way I see that. Do you see it different? Okay, fair enough.
There's going to be one question I think we're going to have to ask in the interview, is clarification on price. And it could just be a general, because I heard that, for example, Atlas still reserved the right to bill for litigation. And I'm wondering to other firms, because there's a big range. I mean, there's one that's kind of low, is he saying they're not going to go for anything else?
Well, and I think one of us mentioned that might be a very good question to ask as we go forward. So if they happen to make it through to the interview based on price as part of the weight, then that's a clarifying question. Because you're right, I mean, it's been my experience.
I asked that because if you look at their references and who they, that's why I asked about the references. If you look and see who they
The list?
yeah, they're pretty big districts, man.
Yep.
So, I mean, I'm sure they didn't shoot that price just because, so
And
that's
it might be
why I said
helpful-
those are questions for her to answer, since, we can't answer those questions.
Right, and I don't remember seeing it anywhere in my SharePoint, so, but if it's there, I apologize, but it might be helpful, because I think I did see it not too long ago, is how much we spent the last 2 or 3 years on legal services. That would help me just get a general fee for, total, because I know what our contract is with the current vendor, but I don't know how much we paid him additional if we have.
Yeah, I think you did provide us a list of
Yeah,
what they
I'm
are.
trying- But I don't remember where I saw it. I don't-
It was on a spreadsheet you submitted to us. I think you
Is it on
made,
your SharePoint?
Or board agenda, no, on the board agenda from the first one.
it's in the board agenda.
I'll find it.
So one of the things that we do have the
I'm
option
sorry,
to.
Ms. Gonzalez, did
Oh,
you have
sorry.
a question?
It's a separate question, so go right ahead.
Okay,
I'll
go
ask
ahead.
it.
One of the things that we can do, if you'd like, we can send out another request for clarification and list your price, and then list any litigation charges. Some people might come back with a 0, or you can save it as an interview question, but different options that you could do. We could
Is
send
that
it.
not in the scope?
I'm sorry?
Is that not in the scope?
It was, we asked for a flat fee.
And one of them did specify.
That's the only one that's specified.
So my question is, in the scope, in the flat fee, does that include litigation?
No.
It's included in everything in this, like the scope included litigation, so yes.
I don't think we should send out another
Another
clarification. It's there, it's part of the package.
The only one firm said, it's my flat fee plus litigation, so we're assuming that everyone else is saying including litigation, right?
Well, that's the thing. You're right, to your point, correct, but again, it goes back to, it's the board's decision. If we, as an individual board member, if you're allowed 1 or 2 questions, you could ask that clarifying question. To your question about should you go out, I think the general feeling is probably not. I think we've gotten enough information that if the board's so inclined to want to get that clarification, then we could get that. Or we could go into making our selection. We go into contract negotiations, that's the fee that's negotiated, and we'll see where we are as we move forward,
Yeah, I'm gonna ask the question because I'm concerned about expenses on certain, I'll give you an example. They all seem to have a local, but what happens if that person is at another meeting? Is that partner coming from San Antonio gonna drive down for a meeting? Are we gonna be, paying for those expenses? I think the answer is no, but I wanna ask.
It
Because
can
I
be
think,
part of their fee. If the flat fee is $5 and
I agree, but I think it's worth going on record to ask
So,
because.
so here's the problem that I have with all that, let's ask, is they've given their price.
Yeah.
So we gotta hold them to it. If the minute you ask the question, they wiggle out of it, now it's a totally different contract.
Yeah, but they're gonna say that
It's in the scope, it's in the
But we
scope.
asked for a base of though.
What is
But-
this?
If you were to go back and read the agreements that they've proposed, because I'm reading one right now,
Okay.
in which item 2 is additional legal work,
the district shall be entitled to reduced hourly rates. So that's on top of the flat billing fee, but that also means that when it comes time for litigation, they're gonna charge us extra.
Yeah, they are. At a reduced rate,
At a
we don't,
reduced rate.
but we don't know what that
rate
reduced
is.
rate,
Right.
exactly.
Right. So I'd like to take this binder home and just be able to study it and then come back and compose my questions. Thank you, sir. Compose my questions, and then we can come back and decide, okay, these are the 4 firms that we'd like to do. Because if I were to make a decision now, I would say we pick a day and we do the 8 hours and we interview all 8. You know?
Well, that was gonna be my question a little while ago. Did we make a decision and I just missed it? Are we interviewing a certain amount?
Not yet, it's up to the board to decide. You can decide to interview 1, or you can decide to interview all 8, or any number. And as you, as a board member, in that consensus discussion, weigh as to what that is in your decision-making, and how you determine what that is to be. But let's not, without moving too much further, a comment was made about the contract. We're not even close to that at this point. At this point, we're only dealing with qualifications. And the board will be interviewing as part of the qualifications. And because we chose for the first time, not that we couldn't, but we did, to include the price element, that really comes after we make a selection and we give direction to the administration to discuss a firm price and prepare the contract. Is that correct?
Correct.
Correct. So price really, is this point, is not the determinant. It is one element because we decided to include it in the qualifications by going out with an RFP/Q versus normally, as you had recommended in our prior conversation, we normally have gone out for an RFQ for professional services. Is that correct?
That's good.
Thank you. Trustee Evans.
No, I was gonna just clarify, and I understand about the price, I know it's one element, but it's the one element that hasn't been evaluated, right? So, just want a little leeway, and to your point, Mr. Sawes, I wanted to bring it up, our current attorney, we had a flat contract with him, yet he still billed over. So to your point, we'd even hold him to that flat fee. So that's why I want to clarify, we haven't done it.
We'll take it.
Yeah, okay.
Now,
But the question needs to be as to why, and was it within the 220, within the flat rate? And we'd have to look at the contract again, and at this moment, I cannot remember all the elements of that contract. But I'd venture to say it had elements in there that allowed for that. Now, having said that, we probably need to verify that to be the fact. But the fact that we issued a payment, if we're professional and in due diligence, is that we would have verified and therefore allowed the payment and issued the payment. Would that be a fair statement? So, okay. So that means we allowed it over and above, or at least the administration did.
Fair.
All right. Is there any other point that we wish to discuss? Now, I'm kind of sensing from at least 2 of us for sure, and I'll include myself in there, that we want time, and so today's not the time and the place to make a determination of narrowing or determining who's going to be interviewed, unless we're going to do all 8. If we're planning to do anything less than that, are we ready to do that, or we want more time? And more time being other than today? What's the general feel?
I don't even think that decision should be made yet. We also have a board member that's not here, who I'm sure is gonna have a role in making that decision. So I think if all of us are gonna take these home and study it more, I think we'll know whether or not we want to interview all 8.
And again, I'm not,
No, I know, you're just asking.
I'm asking the question, and so to the point of the matter, and you bring up a good point, one of our board members is not here. An unforeseen family situation came up. So again, it sounds like now we have 4 board members that say we need more time in order to determine what our next steps would be, including how many we're going to interview.
Yeah, I definitely
Okay,
need more time.
that's 5 of us. So we have a general consensus that today is not the time to determine that. All right, and so therefore, we will not be making a decision on interview selection at this time. Is there any other questions or points that a board member wishes to make?
Just a comment, that's a compliment to our administration for giving us so much information to review. So it's for being so transparent. It's not a negative, it's just, it really is a lot. So I just need some time to really digest it and all that. So thank y'all for, because this is a lot of work right here. It really is, so thank you.
Yeah, thank you for the amount of work in a short amount of time, because you just got these. And you really did a good job of scouring through them and getting us the info, so.
Just remind me of my principal's file. Remember referrals I had?
Now, just for clarification, we are not asking the administration to go any further into doing any additional work other than the body of work, which is extensive, that has been up to this point. Is that correct?
I agree, Sam.
Okay. Anybody see it different? All right, so I think we're at a good whole point this point. Now it's time to take all this information you've given us, great information, a lot of detail, digest it for ourselves, and then start, kind of looking at the, each individual board member feels about what to do next, in their own thoughts, to then share with the rest of the board when we reconvene at a later date.
Do you
Now,
want to- Yeah, set that date.
exactly, now we get to, if we, everybody pull out their calendars.
I thought date was May 12th.
Well, was it May 11th or it was May 11th?
It's gonna be May 11th.
May 11th was, as a place card
Oh, yeah,
to
we
begin
got
the interviews. Is that, if memory serves correct? Is that correct, Mrs.?
That is correct.
Yeah, thank you, Ms. Gonzalez. Thank you, Mrs. Gosa. So now that it doesn't look like that's the target, and we have to have 72 hours to post, that means the earliest we can have another meeting is the 6th, which is a Friday. Or we go on to the 11th. Or we can do it Monday, well, Monday the 9th, we already have a regular board meeting unless we want to have another meeting either before or after the regular board meeting.
Well, we're here.
So we want to aim for the 9th with another
Might
meeting?
slide it towards the end.
Okay.
On the 9th?
Yeah, we're here.
Anybody see it different?
Yeah, I can't be here Friday.
Yeah, neither could I. So I'm glad we're in the same boat. Anybody see it different? It's going to be probably,
A little bit longer meeting, but.
yeah. So let's aim for let's put it at 7:30, and if 7:30 comes, we will recess the 5 PM, open the 7:30, recess that, and go back to the other. If we're done, then we move to the 7:30. Is that okay? Everybody agree with that? I'm being optimistic that we'll be done by
Does that have
7:30.
to be a workshop?
It doesn't have to be, it could be another special board meeting in which
Or
actions could be
You
taken.
can add it to the regular agenda is what I was asking, or you don't want to do that?
I was looking at it as a workshop, but if you want to add it as agenda item,
I think it's important to have it as a workshop only because we have a board member that wasn't here and I'm sure she will have questions.
Agreed.
No,
I
you're
think,
right.
yeah, I think we owe her that courtesy because this is an important decision.
yeah, I would hate for the board member to feel like we're already in actionable mode when
Exactly.
she didn't have a chance, or he, to have that conversation. So a workshop would be perfectly in order. Do we want to then, I'm going to go ahead and leave the 11th open, is that okay? Because let's say on the 9th, we come to a consensus, and therefore we not have an action, but we could still move to do something on the 11th if we need to do that. It may not be the interviews, because it may be too quick to schedule them, but if we need to have an actionable meeting of some sort for any reason, the 11th will give us that chance. And if we don't need it on the 9th, we just cancel it. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. So now, having said that, when would be the target date for a tentative special board meeting on the interviews?
That would be just to bring up who we want to interview and set that date, or is that the actual?
That would be the
Interview.
actual interviews.
Well, we can't do the 18th because that's a workshop, right?
And-
we have a meeting on the 16th.
Yeah. We have two meetings already on the 18th. One is the reorganization of the board, which will take 30 minutes, and then right into a workshop, yeah. Do we want to do the 16th, trying to stay with Mondays to minimize our,
16th is a special recognition.
oh, that's right, I forgot we had a special for the,
The 25th would be the only other time that we could have Wednesday.
do we want to aim for the 25th as a tentative date for interviews?
That works.
Sure.
Okay.
It's a Wednesday, you can't do
I'll cancel
Fridays.
Turks and Caicos, no problem.
I mean, because right after that, we go into our graduations. that
Right,
week.
because we are we doing it during the day or we're doing it in the, I just assume we're doing it.
We're doing it in the evening, either 5:30, probably 5:30, so everybody can get here from
Yeah,
work.
because we can't do it on Friday, we don't want them traveling in, so that's, Thursdays are pretty jam-packed, I'm sure for everybody.
So are we getting a consensus of Wednesday, the 25th, here at the administration board room?
We have a budget workshop that day.
The 25th, or I thought it was 18th?
The 18th and the 25th,
Really?
yes.
Is it a budget
Unless
workshop?
we move our budget workshop.
It is.
I mean,
have
we're
it.
flexible.
We can move that.
But on the last one, unless I missed it, I don't remember voting on it on the last agenda.
No, it's just gonna be placed on this one.
So it hasn't been placed, and we haven't already voted for it. Okay, so we're still open then. And to Ms. Richards' point, we're flexible, it can be moved to a later date. So at this point, that date is open. It was a place card on the administration side. It was not on our list. So we're comfortable with the 25th for interviews at 5:30 in the boardroom as a place card tentative. Are we good for that?
Yep.
All right. And Natalie, at our board meeting on Monday, these will be added for board action on schedule of future meetings, so so the board can have a chance. So again, all 7 of us hopefully being there can digest that and check their calendars, and we'll vote that that's our final, to the degree possible. Any other actionables for today? Any other thoughts? Yes,
Mr.
Ms.
Saliba,
Gonzalez.
we have the references that we've already called. Do you want a copy of those?
Sure.
And then we
If-
also
yes.
have the sample questions from Brownsville that you can get ideas for interview questions that they used. And
Please,
we
thank
have
you.
that too. Crystal will pass them out to you.
Thank you so much.
I saw some reference pages in here, references from people that they provided, right?
Well, what we had decided, the board had given us direction to make calls. So we make calls based on like needs, and so that's what you're getting there. Some people just listed a reference versus providing any information, and some people didn't even give us any references. So the phone calls were to make sure that everybody got a fair game with whoever they listed.
So the reference sheet in here is the notes from a phone call that you all made?
No, that's what Crystal's passing out right now, the notes from the phone call. Everybody was asked the exact same
But they're
questions.
notes from a phone call,
Correct.
not
What they,
references that someone wrote
correct,
to us.
correct.
President?
And there's
Yes.
notes on the
I'm sorry.
bottom when we,
Go ahead, Mr. Randall. Trustee Fry.
Before she passed out the references, the reference questions or example questions that Brownsville asked, I think it's prudent that the board did not get those because there is a certain firm that represents Brownsville, which means they're privileged to those questions.
okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Totally agree.
Okay.
All right, did you already pass them out,
No,
Crystal?
she held them back.
Okay,
Point.
good point. Anybody see it differently?
Can you say that again?
It's a good catch.
Good catch.
Does anybody,
I'm
and
giving
for
My football coach never told
I'm
me.
giving him the.
sound reason, too.
They
Very
wouldn't throw
sound.
it to you.
On those references, the green highlight are the people we were actually able to make contact with. Anybody in yellow highlight, we did not make contact with. But there's notes on the bottom as how many times we've called and who do we spoke to.
Now, the caveat would be that the body of work done so far regarding the references was incomplete. Would that be a fair statement?
That
to
would be a
make?
first statement,
Yeah, so we're weighing something that is not final.
correct.
Okay, so something to think about. And that's fine, because with the board, you asked the question, the board said we didn't feel they needed to be further and complete references, other than what you've done up to this point, unless so directed at a later date. Any other points?
Good.
All right, is there anything else, Mrs. Gonzalez, you wish to bring up?
No, sir.
I really appreciate the time and effort and energy all of you have put to it, and your leadership in getting this matter to this point. I think it helps the board move in a path that's purposeful and with due diligence to making its decision about whom they want to interview and ultimately whom they want to select. So thank you for that. Is there any comments from you, Dr. Gonzalez?
No, sir, just wanted to thank the team and also thank our board for putting in all this effort as we move closer to accomplishing this task.
Very good. Now, with that, we now go to item 4. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Moved by trustee Suarez, second by trustee Peña. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. The ayes have it, 6-0. We are adjourned at 6:43 PM. Thank you.